Hey everyone, Yan Zhao back again tonight. Very special guest, author extraordinaire, and comic book aficionado, and world building expert, Ali Sanguis.
Hello. I don't know if I'd call myself a comic book aficionado.
Well, you've written a comic book, and in these days, that puts you up there with Marvel and DC.
Does it?
Have you seen the quality they've been turning out? So
That's fair. But if
um,
if we were talking like mainstream lore, I'm not
oh
really up on that.
no, that's okay. I mean, in my mind, everything after like 1989 is just fan fiction, anyways.
Well, I mean, mostly when I read and read comics, it's either indie that's super recent or Sandman.
Is Sandman like what sort of got you reading comics at all, or were you into
Um,
things before that?
yeah. Pretty much. It was going through the graphic novel section at my college library because it was like right next to manga, which was which back in 2005 was kind of a different monster. You were like a weird loser if you liked manga and anime. So I uh I was just seeing what that was like because I liked some anime, and I stumbled upon on that right next to it. I was like, wow, these covers are really cool. And then I saw Neil Gaiman, and I was like, whoa, I like Neil Gaiman. I don't know, though, because he's a douche, but
Yeah, yeah, he's one of those guys that proves the saying like "never meet your heroes" type of thing. It's like if I had
yes.
only just read the work and never seen any interviews with him, it would have been much better.
I mean, well, I loved him. Look, I've got his signature. He signed my arm, and I got it tattooed.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, yeah,
But,
I'll still say awesome.
well, yeah, because I mean, if I just ignore the rotten stuff, then it's fine.
I mean, yeah, you could always pretend he died in like 1998 or something.
I
Um,
should. He died right when he was able to publish the final Sandman, and nothing else happened from then on.
exactly.
Oh,
You know,
what a wonderful world.
I really enjoyed his novels too. I was a big fan of American Gods and the Anasazi brothers. But I don't know, like he, along with many others, got infected by the virus after 2012.
Well, that happens when you marry a feminist.
Well, but I don't know. I think it goes back before that. So I don't really know much about his first wife, but she was from Minneapolis. Not great, but from the Midwest, so that's a plus. But then, when you hook up with like a rock star and and get away from your wife, that's kind of what happens.
Yeah, well, it's okay. We can mourn his passing now.
But as an author, I did want to ask you one thing, um, which is sort of Neil Gaiman related. Do you believe that authors ever owe their fans work?
I'm not sure what you mean.
So I saw Neil Gaiman was at some sort of author panel. It was him, Patrick Rothfuss, and George R. R. Martin. And of course, people were giving Martin crap for being, he was probably
Late.
only 12 years late for his book for Wins a Winner at that point.
Sure.
Um, and Neil like stood up and he's like, he doesn't owe you anything. You don't command us to work and this and that. Do you kind of think that he's right, or do you think that there are ever occasions when authors do owe fans?
I mean, did he promise it would be done by a certain date?
Not only that, I believe he said you could kidnap him misery style if it wasn't done by, a year or two ago.
Oh, well then, kinda, yeah. Like, I don't know if I'd call that owing necessarily, but it's like, why would you say that and then not do it other than to just, unless you come out and you say, look, I'm almost done. I thought I'd be totally done, but I've only got like, I don't know, 5,000 words left. Give me another month, then fine. That'd be fine. But he gave them a deadline. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah, and to me, it's
Why not
like,
just say, don't worry, it'll be done before I die?
I don't know. At
That's so
this
much
rate, I'm not
better.
sure. Yeah, I don't know.
No?
For me, I think that there is sort of an obligation on the author. If you're like, hey, this is only part one. My story is much longer. This is book one. Trust me, it's going to be awesome. I want you to come along with this ride. I'm totally going to finish it. Um, I think you owe people a book. I think, you can have personal tragedies. It can take longer than you thought. Maybe the story itself needs to be bigger than you originally thought. I think all of those are okay and people understand. But like, what are we on now? 15 years or something since the last Game of Thrones came out? Like,
I
or
don't
Song of Ice and Fire
I've
book, I should say.
I've never read them. It didn't interest
I
me
don't blame you.
at all. I never even heard of them until the show came out, and then my friends bothered me for 5 seasons probably to watch it, so I finally watched season 1, but maybe I was too late because by then it was already, oh, it is known that everyone will just die, and
Mm.
I kind of went into it thinking like, well, Jason Momoa was hot, and I like Boromir, and sure. But and I didn't know they died. No one told me they died, but I kind of
Oh,
knew they would die.
oh.
So I didn't feel like I could invest in it. I was like, what's the point?
Hmm.
There's no point in me learning what happens. And then like I don't even remember his name. Was it Ned?
Yes.
Ned. Okay, the Stark guy.
Yep.
I really liked his character being, I'm gonna be so true to my morals and steadfast to my king and everything that I believe in. That was really interesting. And then he just like fucking dies for no reason. It was really depressing and I was not a fan. And I thought the emasculation of Khal Drogo was super depressing too. Like, why? There was no point in that either. He just thought it was almost like he thought it would be funny to take this, hyper masculine warlord and just strip him of everything and just make him into this little sissy. And then
Yeah.
and then make him die the stupidest, most dishonorable death, all because of a woman.
Yeah, I think Martin's whole idea with that series was simply I want to be the anti-Tolkien. I'm gonna go against all the
Was that what he
tropes.
does?
He has said it in a few points that like he thought Tolkien's characters were too good. He did also say that not enough people in the Fellowship of the Ring died. Um, So you could see he started early when he was young. But yeah, he said, it's not realistic enough. Should have it, more of a cruel world, and people aren't motivated by honor and this and that. And
I
so,
mean, Aragorn was.
sure.
Like
Well,
literal centuries of guilt and honor on his back. Like his motivation could lie there.
yeah, I think and you can sort of see where the problem comes to a head at the end of at least the Game of Thrones show. Now, granted, the showrunners did a terrible job of finishing it up, but supposedly that's based on Martin's notes, where it's just like it was all terrible. Once you say, I'm going to totally go against like classical, heroes fighting darkness type tropes, that it just you got nowhere to go. You can't save a story, which is why nobody liked the end.
I didn't see it.
I don't blame you.
I
But
think I watched some reviews, but that's all.
but getting sort of spinning off that, one of the reasons that I really wanted to have you on is you do a great show with on Friday nights on world building on your channel and with 𝓲𝓪𝓷𝓰𝓾𝓲 Draws. And, I'm a big fan. I try to catch them all. So when you do world building, are you like an inside out or an outside in type of person? And what I mean by that is like, do you start with your stories like, oh, I got this cool scene in mind, and then you sort of build the world out to like match with that scene? Or do you start with like, I want this kind of a world, I want this setting and these kind of people, and then once you have all those things in place, you use that to write your scene?
Well, it kind of depends, but for the book I'm usually talking about on every other Friday,
Hmm.
um, the Rotting Crown, that I actually started with just a scene. And I think I wrote it in ninth grade. It was
Hmm.
8th or ninth grade. And it was just one scene where I thought, I want to write a fight scene. Oh yeah, there it is. And that cover art, the cover title and stuff is changed, but the cover art was by Dean James, who's actually in the chat.
Oh, good job, Dean.
Or was at one point. There you go, Comics Mate, that's him. Yeah, I just wanted to write a fight scene because I'd been watching a lot of anime like Outlaw Star and Princess Mononoke, and I was like, I'm gonna write a fight scene. So I wrote a long paragraph, I guess, in my blog about this girl fighting using magic. And then I just kind of went on from there. Actually, I added a couple more pages of what I thought was going to be that same girl, but it turned out it's her mom. The story branched, but in high school, and I haven't told anybody this part of it yet. In high school, my creative writing teacher liked me so much that he made a special course that was just me in it. Because I
Ooh.
took both creative writing courses, and he was like, I don't really have anything to teach you, so how about I create a special course, and that will give you another credit for writing, but instead of creative writing, the course is that you write a book. And you take all of the semester to write this book, and then when you're done, like, give me what you've done every week, and then when you're done, I'll read the whole book. And so I didn't actually do that. I ended up writing what was supposed to be a book, but it turns out it's actually a chapter of The Rotting Crown, except for at this point I've rewritten it and made it better, and it's not as though an 11th grader has written it. But yeah. So from that, which was just this fight scene with this girl who was using magic, and then it became this girl who didn't want to, like, just a chapter about this girl who didn't want to get married. But then she meets someone else. It was super simplistic. And discovers she has the power to do magic. I thought, I want to do more. So I gave her some more tragedy. And then I wanted her to experience more hardship. And then it branched out where it became more about the wizard and I wrote all this other stuff about like how slavery works in this world, and I realized all of these separate things I was writing were all part of the same story. So I just brought it all back together and then connected all the pieces and built the world around these little pieces that I had thrown together. And then as I go, I just add more as needed. So it's not really the way most people do when they sit down and they're like, I'm gonna write this book and I'm gonna start world building. It was quite organic and a long process.
So, if you started in high school, how long has it taken you to write the book?
Um, well, if we start from that very first paragraph, that would be from 2001.
Okay, 22 years.
Hmm. But
So you're
I
you're on a
wasn't
faster pace than George
constantly.
R. R. Martin.
Am I really sick? I wasn't constantly writing it though. Like I took years where I didn't even touch it because I was like, I'm gonna work on other things. You know, I published my other book, Wild Man, first. So I took about a year to just do that book, and nothing else. So it wasn't constant. Um, yes, Wild Man, there it is. And that one's quite short. I have my author copy right here is the only copy left. I sold about 200 of them all by myself without a campaign or anything. Um, so that was fun. But yeah, I'm gonna probably re-release it in a hardcover with a different
Oh,
cover because I don't really like the one that I got, and I want it to be hardcover. I want it.
very cool. So you took quite a while to get a finished product. When you're doing your world building, how do you know when enough is enough? Like, it's very easy to get lost in all the details.
Um, Usually enough becomes enough when I find myself more distracted by the process of world building as opposed to adding to the story.
Hmm.
So, and that includes something like research. I'm not a huge fan of doing research for fictional books, um, like which is part of why writing fantasy is fun and appealing because
Hmm.
technically you could just write whatever you wanted to and do minimal research. You should do a little bit, but I think the smallest amount of possible, which is kind of how I do world building. What do I need right now to make this thing happen? If I'm missing something, am I missing
Mhm.
an aspect of my world in the first place, or do I just want to mess around for a couple days while I, learn about, I don't know, whatever types of mosquitoes live in this bog or whatever.
Huh, that's interesting because I think most other people that I've heard would say the opposite. Like even to like, well, I needed to learn ancient Greek in order to understand how this hoplite formation worked. And
No, I don't think that that's necessary. I mean,
hmm,
it's fun to like, okay, so if your job, right, or even your severe hobby, is to be a linguist, you say you're Tolkien and that's your life, then that's awesome. Keep doing that. Use that in your work. But because that's, part of your everyday life, it's not like you're going out of your way and distracting yourself. You're still doing your work.
hmm, that makes sense.
Dungeon
So,
Delver asked me a question though.
oh yes, let's get to Michael's real quick, and then we'll go to Dungeon Delver.
Okay.
So when will the book be on Google Play Books? I'll buy it when I can read it on my phone.
I'll be honest, I don't even know what that is.
So not soon. Um,
Um,
but there in the description to the video, there is a link to the website where I'm sure you can buy a copy there.
Actually, there's no more copies. There's no more physical paperback copies of Wild Man left. Once I have the new cover designed, then I'll release the hardcover physical copies. However, if you want an ebook, yeah, there's a link to get the ebook right there. And it doesn't go on Google Play Books. You just get like a file. It'll send you a PDF.
Oh, there you go. You
I
can
don't
read a
know.
PDF on your phone. So there you go, Michael.
I don't know if that is helpful, but I also, on my channel, I just read it out loud for free. So if people want to listen to my voice for, I don't know, I think it's like an hour and a half.
The link to her channel is also in the description to this video, so you could check that out. But it would be much cooler to own your own PDF. So go check out the website. And then we've got the Dungeon Delver. What do you think of generative AI to create writing prompts you can work off of? Not having an AI write you a book, but plot threads you can use.
Well, a writing prompt is different than just straight up like giving you plot points. if I guess if you wanted to ask AI like give me a writing prompt to get my day started that is practicing silly stuff or something, I don't know, then I guess maybe, but I'm not a huge fan of AI in the first place, and I think any asking AI for a plot is not good. Okay, I'll say this. Not everyone can or should be a writer, and maybe if you're heavily relying on AI to find plots for you, you should maybe do something else that's not writing.
Yeah, to me, that question's kind of interesting because it seems like of all the writing stuff that you could possibly ask AI to do, that would be in some ways the worst. Because like an overall plot should be the most simple and the how would I say it? Like in some ways, like closest to your heart, like the thing that interests you the most about a project to write on. I could see if people had trouble with writing dialogue, or if people asked AI like, what kind of swords did people use in the 4th century, or something like that. That would make sense to me. But a plot, like, plot points that, or even prompts, it seems to me like that's sort of the backbone.
When there's a whole bunch of writing prompts just like out there. There's whole Facebook groups of people who just exchange writing prompts and stuff. Like, it's not really that difficult.
Yeah, the other thing that concerns me about AI is that it's different if you have a group that does writing prompts, like everybody's sort of making something up and everybody's riffing off each other. But in AI, as much as it's supposed to be creative, it's just running off of things that other people have programmed into it. So you're still at the mercy of, in a lot of ways, you're at the mercy of other people who, they might not give you prompts that would really, like, they're going to prompt you for things that they want you to write about, not necessarily expanding your range.
Right. Hello?
So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying hello because I thought you disappeared.
Oh, no, sorry. Camera fell. So, as you're going through new projects, you mentioned with the Rotting Crown, it sort of started from one fight scene. Is that sort of your normal MO when you're building worlds, or do you just sort of how's your normal process, I should say?
Um, for most of my books, and I've never actually thought about this, so that's a good question. For most of my books, I've not started right at the beginning. I start with just a scene that I like in my head, that I dreamed about, or um, I I'm just laying there and I have a thought, or um, a lot of times, reading a lot of things, I'll get an idea and I just write a scene. I'm like, oh, that's a cool, interesting scene, and I'll write that, and then sort of expand on it from there if it sticks in my head. Although I did start one book once, from the very beginning and write it to the very end, but I was 11, so I'm not sure that counts.
Well, technically. Um, so, as you mentioned that you've been writing pretty much all your life. So, how has your approach to it changed over the years?
To writing.
Like, especially, since now you've got several books that you've finished, you've published, you've got one comic book. So, like, has there been any change, or you're like, yep, this method works for me and I'm good, or
I mean, yeah, pretty much it's been the exact same the whole time.
okay.
I don't
S-
I
so,
don't try a lot of new ways of doing things. I just do it.
all right, that
And
makes sense.
Shadowpunk asks if I have done comics. Yeah, I've edited several comics, and I'm writing one called Egg Beater that's just mine, and then
Mhm.
I'm writing other comics for a couple other people as well.
And speaking of egg beater, so I found it on Indiegogo. It looks like it's ended. So everything is the campaign is complete with egg beater. Is it out and
Yes, I
delivered?
might do. I Is it what?
Is it like out to the customers already, or
No,
no?
it's
Okay.
the art is not completed yet. It's all done traditional
Oh,
by
nice.
my artist, so he is working on the art right now. It's about halfway done. Once he's done with the art, he sends it to me, and then I'm doing the lettering and the fulfillment. However, I do have all of the perks um, done. I've got all the prints and the aprons and the everything. It's all, and the hats and all that stuff is ready to go. It's just the and the magnets. It's just the actual book. So, but I mean, he's working on the art right now. So
And do you think there
I
might
might
be
do a
a
second chance campaign
yeah?
on Kickstarter or Fund My Comic though.
Nice. And do you sort of have like an ETA for when you think it might be ready for that?
I'm hoping by next October is going to be the latest, but I mean, it all depends on my artist. He's got 6 kids, and and he's a tattoo artist, so he's got a day job, and then he does all of the little
Mhm.
league stuff. So it's really a labor of love for him, where he stays up late and walks around sleep deprived so that he can make this.
Uh, so we've got a few questions here in the chat. So Kanik asks, have you ever co-authored? If so, what are the benefits and challenges you've discovered with those experiences?
No, but I would. I think probably the benefit could be that it would go faster, but the challenge could be that it would end up going slower because it would just depend on what the other person was willing to do. I have done the game sometimes that I would play with other writers where we do like one line at a time for a story. That's a fun game to play to kind of play with your writing skills. But that's not really the same as doing a whole story. So
That's true. And Shadowpunk asks, what's your process in dealing with artists? Do you just hand it off or do you oversee the whole way?
since Egg Beater is my kind of comic book baby, I started out do, well, it was supposed to be a movie, and so I had to rework the script into a comic because there's a lot of ways that stuff that works in a movie doesn't translate well to a comic. So I had to fix that. But when I was writing it, I was trying to keep in mind the entire time that I didn't want my artist to hate me. There's a lot of comic scripts now that I've seen where I just salute the artist absolutely. Alan Moore, officially a psycho because his scripts are terrifying. It's a long block of all caps text that's just written like a crazy person. I like all of his books are 100%. I'm convinced all the artists because wow, he's a psycho. His writing style is insane. But I did start out sending. I sent my artist these stupid like. I just took printer paper and I drew like the I don't know, the word is escaping me. I drew the boxes how I wanted
The
them, and I was
thumbnails?
like, do it like
Mhm.
this. No, not even thumbnails. It was just this is what I want the page to look like.
Oh, okay. The layout, the overall layout.
Yeah, the layout. Yes, thank you. I don't know why I couldn't remember the word. And it turned out maybe I shouldn't have done that because uh it ended up better where it looked ridiculous. And when the next one came and I said, "Hey, I don't really know how to set this format up where, Egg Beater's killing this dude. I don't know how to set that up." And he was like, "You know what? No problem. Like, I'm going to do sequential art the way I sequential art." And I said, "Okay, I trust you." And it turned
Nice.
out so much better. So I'm going to probably in the future, and I have for the last, I think, 8 pages, give a lot more trust to my artist and try and sort of another thing that I see in scripts is where the writer will put a whole bunch of writing. They'll be like, "Oh, so it I want it to look like this, but also a little bit like this, but don't do it like this. Have you ever seen this?" Like it becomes this weird note, and I don't do
Yeah.
that. I try to make it really simple. I'm like, I want my artist to look at it, see as few words as possible, and then go from there and have that creative freedom. And every time I've worked with an artist and said, "Here's my basic idea. Here's some things I absolutely cannot let you do, but everything else, go at it." Every time I've done that, it's ended up so much better.
Interesting.
Even for the covers of my books. Um I had some stupid idea for a cover for the Rotting Crown like I don't know 7 years ago, and I asked this lady to do it, and it was like, oh, I want eyes floating in the sky and like 7 people walking with the thing, and it was so convoluted and weird, and I was so like anal about it that it ended up being one of the worst covers ever created of mankind. And I was like, wow, what a waste of money. So I just so when I was like, okay, I need an actual cover for the Rotting Crown that's really good and really professional and pretty. So that's when I went to Dean and I was like, I'm gonna give you the basic idea and a color scheme and like a couple reference photos. do as you will. And then he did, and it was perfect, and everyone's been responding really positively to it. So I'm just gonna do that from now on.
Awesome. Yeah, that's sort
Give
of,
artists room.
yeah, I mean, for one thing, that's what you're paying them for. It's sure it's the drawy, brushy skills, but it's also, the experience and sort of the overall design sense to make something cool. So it's good. It's good to see that you can do that. That's sort of my approach. Working on my campaign guide, Empire of the Undying Sun, which will have more information out later this month. That's basically the approach I took with my artists. I'm like, a bunch of adventurers are fighting this kind of monster. Go at it. Do whatever you want. And I got some awesome artwork back for it.
Yeah.
So the Dungeon Delver had another question. When you write fantasy or anything else, to be honest, do your characters have a voice? Do they speak to you and ask to be written about?
No. Though sometimes I do dream, like I do write in my dreams. So oh. um so I'll have a dream where I'm writing, and it's usually like I'm typing on something that's not there. Like there's no keyboard, but I'm
Mhm.
typing, and then there's the words in front of me, and then just some sort of like swirl of landscapes or something in the background, and I just type in my dreams. The only annoying thing about that is that right when I wake up, I have to get up and type it all over again.
When you're writing characters, do you ever like speak out their dialogue out loud?
Oh
Like, do
yeah,
you talk to yourself, like having conversations
I'm not
between
talking to
characters?
myself. I'm not talking to myself, but that's how I test my dialogue so that it
Hmm.
sounds natural. Especially in the Rotting Crown, I created a dialect for my merchant class that's different than the language that I created.
Hmm.
And it started where I was like, I just want them to have dialect so that they sound fun. And I thought, ooh, what if they sounded Irish? But then I realized that I would have to research how to write down the Irish dialect. So I changed my mind and just made it up. And it's a lot better. And you know, now when I read it, it's smooth. But that's how you test it. You know how when it comes when you speak it, does it sound natural? Does it sound like something that that person would say, and how they would say it? Because
Hmm.
nobody speaks, formally or says things strangely. We all say what's easiest for us to say and how fast we can get it out. So
Hmm. That's
if
true.
when I wanted a natural character that's not being formal, then that's what I would do. But if it's a queen or something addressing her people, then there's a formality that goes with that kind of speech. That's a little different.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way before. So Michael Dale asks, Ali, do you read often, or is most of your time spent writing your own works? If you still read, what genres and who's your favorite non-world builder?
I absolutely read. I read constantly, all the time. I read books that I've read before, over and over again. I read new stuff, stuff I have no interest in, stuff that sounds super interesting. I will constantly read uh, anything and everything. Um, and that is my biggest thing. If for people who say, oh, I want to be a writer, what should I do? My first answer is you should absolutely read everything. Read stuff you like, read stuff you don't like, um, read stuff you don't understand. uh Maybe not in different languages, but if you're like, oh, that would be too advanced for me, read it anyway, because what you will discover is you will find the things that work and the things that don't work for you. And you'll find things in really unexpected places as well. Like I never really thought that detective novels were going to be interesting to me. It's like, oh, it's probably a lot of boring, drivel about who did this and who went there, and I thought it would be boring until I just came upon this this novel that was filled with a bunch of smaller, short stories that were like classic detective books. I think of Oxford or something. And it's
Mhm.
from, I don't know, 80 years ago. And it was absolutely fascinating. And so, some of them are more boring. Like there was a whole one about a stamp fraud that was really, really boring. But um, some of it was really interesting because what it did was it created in me a desire to want to make things a little more, I don't want to say complicated, but make things a little more surprising and be a little more inventive, because the ways that detective writers and mystery writers, but specifically in the detective solving crime genre, uh, the cool thing is that they have the most creative minds of all writers, because they're coming up with these just absolutely insane plot lines of who done it, and and the weirdest ways that their detectives solve it, or not even detectives. Sometimes it's a person who's just, oh, I'm a regular person who's just observant, and that's awesome. So read everything, and I read everything. I have a ton of books.
Um, do you like when you're getting close to writing, do you ever like stop reading certain books or certain genres that are kind of close to the material that you're going to write, just so that you don't actually accidentally find yourself too influenced by stuff other people wrote?
No,
Hmm,
I wouldn't
interesting.
be. I don't.
Uh,
I wouldn't be, because what I have is not going to be affected. Like what I have in my mind is not going to be affected stylistically by anything that I'm reading.
hmm,
Like maybe I'll get ideas for, okay, I want to make things that are more this way, or for my zombie comic, for example, he's a detective. That was part of why I read all these detective novels, and my next thing is going to be a zombie comic, and he's a detective. So I was reading all of this detective stuff to figure out, okay, what are the ways that I can have this be really interesting and cool? So yeah.
hmm.
But I don't think that it would affect my style at all. So, and
Okay.
I can't imagine stealing or accidentally stealing a plot line or anything.
Hmm. So Kanik asks, do you have a set schedule
Oh,
to
wait,
work?
wait, wait. Hold
Oh,
on.
sorry.
I didn't answer a question. He said, which genres and who's your favorite
Oh,
non-me world
yes.
builder? I'm sorry. Um, I talked for a long time. So, sci-fi is my favorite genre. Um, the second is probably fantasy, with a little bit of suspense built in. Um, and as far as my favorite non-me world builders, other than Tolkien, um, I don't think J.K. Rowling is a talented writer, but I think she's a very talented world builder. Um, and then Anne Rice,
Hmm.
and probably Orson Scott Card.
Oh, that's an interesting mix.
I would I would have said Oscar Wilde, but I'm not sure if that counts because he didn't really build a world. So,
Hmm. That's true.
but I think Oscar Wilde is probably the greatest writer of all time.
Oh, interesting. What's your favorite work of his?
Um, believe it or not, it's not Dorian Gray. Um, it's the one where it's about the fan, Lady something's fan. Ugh, I feel like such an idiot.
That's all right. It's always when you're not
Uh,
expecting it.
well, it's a weird name. Lady Windermere's fan. That's it.
Oh, I haven't read that one.
His comedy is very like he wrote all these social comedies, and um I'm actually not sure why Dorian Gray is his most popular work, because not only did he write social comedies that are just hilarious, but he also wrote all these weird fables, like fairy tales. Um, but Lady Windermere's fan is just chuckle worthy. Like, I laugh my butt off the whole time, and it's so ironic. And I don't mean to say that like, oh, it's ironic. Like, it actually is very very ingenious irony.
Hmm. All right, I'm gonna have to check that one out. I personally think Dorian Gray got so popular because it's A, it was in public domain, and B, they were looking for more like classic monster type stories from the same like genre time setting as like a Dracula and a Frankenstein, and like a Mummy's Curse. And they're like, okay, well, what else? What else is similar? And Dorian Gray like sort of fits in that time period. So that's why like authors keep shoving him in, like Alan Moore with League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, or the Penny Dreadful show,
But
things like that.
I will say nothing bad about Penny Dreadful. That show is amazing. I love
Especially the first
everything
season.
about it. Josh Hartnett, perfect. The guy who played Dorian Gray, I forget his name, but I wanted him to play Lestat. He's great.
That was a good show until season 3, and then it's sort of like, oh, but
I mean, it got weird, but I still love it. I freaking love that show.
it's a shame we didn't get the other 2 seasons.
I know. Don't talk about it. There's so
So,
many shows that they just don't keep doing, even though they should. I'm looking at you, Mind Hunters.
I know that was so good, and there's no way they'll ever get all those people back together.
And
Uh,
it's not like you can find more people that can play those serial killers perfectly ever again. Ah.
I know. All the problem with those shows is that they have really good ideas for one season, and then when they get picked up for more, you kind of see they're like, "Oh crap, what do we do now?" Mindhunters was surprisingly good all the way through, but many of those Netflix or Amazon shows, I don't know. There should really be more one season shows in the US like they do in Japan.
Yes, there should. Or even I'll
But
even take like a three-parter, you know,
yeah,
or even two, like it. It was just a two-part, TV special
that's true.
from
So
a crappy book, but still.
So I have a question I've been wanting to ask for a while, and that has to do with women and horror. So you like a lot of horror, and like some people I've argued with, they would say like women do not like the horror genre at all, and I disagree. With the amount of like true crime shows out there that women are addicted to, I say women love horror. They don't love gore. Would you agree that I'm kind of on the right track, or
Kind of. But I mean, Egg Beater is very gory, and I can watch a lot of gore.
so
I'm trying to filter my I'm trying to filter my answer because I don't know what I can specifically say, but I will say that true crime for women is not horrifying. So there's not really a
yeah?
good
Hmm.
uh comparison there, because we're not watching it like because we're like, oh no, that's so terrible. We're watching it like partially being fascinated, but partially, and a lot of women won't admit this, but the reason why women are so obsessed with serial killers, and you see, oh, he was such an attractive serial killer, like meh. And it baffles guys because they're like, but they're crazy and they've killed people. Like, aren't you afraid you would die? But the thing is, we want to be the exception. You know, we want to put ourselves in a position where we're like, wow, he's a really dangerous guy who'd kill whoever except me. And that's
Okay.
why they're watching it, because women are watching it for that fantasy, which is why uh at this point I think only only immature women are really obsessed with true crime, unless you're watching it for um for research purposes, you know, where you're like, hey, I want to learn some stuff
That
about what.
that was my other question, because like my wife loves serial killer shows, true crime shows, and but she actually seems to be very scared, because like like listen to a podcast, and then like she'll go and make sure all the locks are locked. Um,
Well,
but then there's
maybe it's different for women who are already married, because she's like, oh, I get to cuddle, you know. Maybe it's that she gets to cuddle with you and you know, lock up and be like, protect me from the serial killer because I know you can. Like, maybe that's part of it.
maybe, but then there's other times where I really have to ask myself, is she doing research? And sometimes she'll say very strange things. So okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to.
Research for writing or for how to kill
I mean,
someone.
that's what I'm wondering. Like, am I gonna wake up tomorrow? Um,
Whoa.
yeah.
Blink twice.
um, so then, for you, what is it about horror that hits that sweet spot for you?
um, well, honestly, I don't really watch a lot of horror. Because I'd rather watch fantasy
Hmm.
or sci-fi. But I will read horror quite extensively, and but not Stephen King. He sucks. He's a hack. A weirdo degen hack. However, Dean Koontz is a master.
Oh, yep.
Absolutely brilliant. I don't know why he's not the one who's getting, you know, all the money in the movies and stuff, because not only is he not a degen, but he's also insanely talented. I have a book by Dean Koontz. It's called Intensity. I literally could not put it down. I finished it in, I think, 5 hours, and my heart was pounding the whole time. That's not a thing I usually experience in a book, but I was like literally on the edge of my seat. These are all cliches, but I'm dead serious. Um, I was really concerned for the girl in this book, and just like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? I literally can't blink. I can't stop reading. I'm walking through the house like, uh, it was kind of like when I was a kid, and I'd be walking to school, and I don't know why my camera keeps doing this. Um, I'd be walking to school, still reading whatever book that I was reading, not even watching as I crossed the street, and I didn't realize anything was going on around me. It was exactly like that again. Dean Koontz is brilliant, a total master, and he writes a lot of horror stuff, but a lot of it is quite psychological, or it's just really really tense and insane. So that's where I sit with horror, is because it's like it's exciting, you know. But I haven't really watched a lot, like watched a lot of horror. I haven't seen most of the horror classics. So
Hmm.
I
Interesting.
horror comics are fun though. I've got
Uh,
well, sorry.
so for you, is it would you say that the horror is better when you sort of make up your own visuals in your mind, as opposed to like, Jason goes stabs 30 people?
Yeah, I would. um and I can give you an example. So if you've seen Hostel.
I have not seen Hostel. That's the one kind of horror that I can't do. I saw the first Saw movie, and it's like, nope, no more of those.
Okay. What about I don't know how to Okay. So think of the scariest movies that,
Mhm.
ever existed, right? Even today, for a lot of people, The Exorcist is still considered the scariest movie of all time.
Yes.
Okay. Why? If you watch it and you just sit down and, like me when I was 16 for the first time, I'd heard of it. I got it at Walmart for $4 and I sat down to watch it cuz I was like, "Ooh, I'm not being supervised and I have my own money so I can watch it." Um it's honestly kind of boring at times because there's very little going on. And you have to watch it a few times to kind of get what's happening because there's things going on that aren't immediately obvious. And it's very slow building, slow building. Why is this guy in the Middle East? What does that have to do with anything? And then there'll be a flash and it's like on I don't know if anybody will know what I'm talking about, but when the mom is in the kitchen at one point, there's a flash. Like the lights flash on and off for just half a second and there's a face above the stove. And just that freaked me out so badly after, I don't know, 25 minutes of this slow buildup of, what's going on with this girl, what's going on with this priest. Like, okay, come on. When's it get scary? That scared me so much that I couldn't go out to get a drink because I was like, what was that? Did I even see it? What if I blink in my kitchen at night and that happens? So, and it wasn't it wasn't spelling everything out, whereas opposed to something like Saw, which the first one is a good movie, but it's very, obvious what's happening when the things are happening. There's not a lot
Mhm.
to left to the mind other than, who is this and what's happening? But it's like this is what's obviously going on. I do think suggestion is more powerful, especially if you have a really thinking audience. Cuz that's part of why I don't watch a lot of horror because I get scared. I turn it off, and I'm not scared while I'm watching it. And then I turn it off and I'm like, what was that noise? Like there are probably zombies. So yeah, suggestion is quite powerful and can be much scarier
Mhm.
because our brains are going to do scarier things than any movie. We have nightmares that,
Yeah.
freak us out that no movie does.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because as a kid, um, for except for The Exorcist, which I should not have been able to watch at 10 years old, the other horror movies, like if I could see the ending, I wouldn't be scared. But if I couldn't see the ending, if like my parents came by, were like, "Oh no, this is too scary, you have to stop," then I would have nightmares. But there's something about like, oh, okay, I get to see it resolved that let my mind sort of rest. Whereas if I didn't, then it was like amped up, like, oh my God.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
It's definitely scarier.
So Kanik mentions I happen to know that Kanik is a woman. It's not about the gore. I prefer the depth of psyche involved and the break between logic and emotional trauma reacted in the physical world outside the mindscape. Hmm,
Sweet.
interesting. So, then I'm a little bit curious if it's more the sort of seeing it in your mind that you like as opposed to things being obvious. When you're writing Egg Beater, how did you go about sort of with that dichotomy since, comics are mostly a visual medium? Did you tell your artist like, okay, don't draw it exactly or like, leave it in shadow or was it more just go for it?
Well, I did have a very specific design in mind for like Egg Beater himself, and that's what I had him draw. And in fact, he drew very little concept art and kind of went right to the cover image.
Oh,
Which was pretty sweet actually. Like I think he drew three little guys, uh and then like a front, a back, and a side. And then he presented me with the black and white version of that, but with the background. It's up there. And that was perfect but the inside, when I talked about how I wanted the inside to look, I basically told him like The Crow or Sin City. So that it has
oh,
that like black and white sort of gritty,
hmm,
um, you know,
like noir kind of feel.
um, more Crow than Sin City, so less noir. Um,
Okay.
a lot, well, not a lot, but a bit inspired by Hart Fisher's stuff, because he
Hmm.
was the one who kind of pushed me to do Egg Beater as a comic, because like I said, I'd been trying to do it as a movie for years and figure all that out. I had started. I was gonna do. I went to school for it, so I was gonna do all the like makeup and effects myself. But I was looking. I had found a director. I was setting up auditions. The only thing is, I have epilepsy, so I can't drive. So
Ah,
anything that I factored in to any production, anything, was how do I get there? And how do I move when I'm there? And it just logistically was quite impossible, just from money alone. Um, so I got kind of sad about it, and I spoke to Hart Fisher, who's been doing comics for years, and he also does indie movies. Um, I had him on my channel a little while ago as well. And he said, if you do it as a comic, send it to me and I'll read it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it as a comic. So that's part of why I translated it over. And I was like, I'll do it as a comic so that, my horror baby gets out there, and and I love it and I'm excited about it. So that's pretty much
excellent.
how.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking for. I remember seeing the original Indiegogo for it, and then I don't know what happened. I missed it, but I'm definitely keeping an eye out for the second chance. Uh,
Okay.
so we'll do. Oh shoot, there was one last question. Oh, there we go.
The second chance will probably be in the next couple weeks.
Oh, so everyone keep an eye out. And so if people want to find that, where is the best place to keep up with you? On your website, on Twitter, on your YouTube
Uh,
channel?
Probably on my Twitter.
Twitter. Link to the Twitter is also in the description. So everyone go follow Allie. You know what? Go
But
follow her channel too.
I do have on my channel, like, I mean, I'll probably just use the same trailer, because that trailer has the music that I had made for it in it.
Mhm.
Um, the music that I put on a vinyl,
You
because
got to put it onto vinyl.
yeah, I like vinyl, and so I spent $70 putting my two songs that I had made for it on my on this 45.
Very
So
cool.
yay! This
Are you
record
going to
that
sell
like
that as well?
one of a kind. Oh man,
Ah,
it's just
okay.
so expensive to print them. I don't know. If there was enough
Yeah.
demand, then I could, because the more you order, the less they cost. But like, I can't I can't justify, charging somebody $100 for a 45.
Yeah, that's kind of a hard sell.
That was just an ego thing where I was like, I'm gonna put the songs I had made on this vinyl because I like vinyl.
Well, when you start selling like 6 figures worth of books, there's definitely people who will buy that. But so
Maybe
the
I
question is,
did buy the Battle Brick Road vinyl.
oh yeah, oh very cool. I didn't realize you put a
Yes,
vinyl
Dean, I
out
am
from that.
very proud of my vinyl.
um, so I know you've got to go in a little bit, but there was one last question I think really needs to be answered. Joan of Arc was epileptic. Does God ever tell you to take over France during seizures?
No,
Oh, they could
but
really use the help over
it
there.
it wouldn't be hard. But no, I don't hear voices during my seizures at all. I do.
Um,
I've got a video of me having a seizure, if that's interesting to
oh,
anyone. Um,
ooh, geez.
what?
Oh, I don't know. I'm kind of surprised. I don't know. I guess somewhere on YouTube, there's got to be people who go around looking for seizure videos.
Well, yeah. I mean, people are curious and stuff. So many people asked, so I
That's
just
true.
put it up. But yeah, I don't hear voices or anything. It usually kind of feels like time travel, actually.
Oh,
Like
has that ever
I've
inspired any of your stories?
no.
No. Hmm, okay.
But have you did you ever see the butterfly effect?
Yes.
It's like that.
Oh, that's pretty interesting.
That's why I can't watch that movie. It freaks me out. I'm like, what if that's me and all of these seizures are just me going back in time to fix things and breaking things? So yeah, no.
All right. Um, well, Allie, thank you very much for stopping by tonight. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully
Oh
we'll
wait,
have you back again
Dungeon
soon.
Delver
Oh,
said I didn't answer a question. Sorry. If
oh, you
Allie has
didn't?
read Dunsany,
Oh,
uh,
I missed
I
that
don't
question.
think so. I don't think I've ever heard of that. And someone else said,
Oh,
"Do I like Lovecraft?"
hmm.
I've never read any Lovecraft.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. So yeah,
I don't
Lord,
know. I don't know why. I've read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe. Obviously,
mhm.
I've read. I don't know. I don't like I said. I don't read a lot of horror. I like to read sci-fi. Excuse me, sci-fi mostly.
You might be interested in Lord Dunsany. He was an Irish writer, and he would write. It wasn't exactly horror, but you could almost call it like proto Lovecraftian themes. But it was a lot of fantasy as well. He went through a bunch of different phases, but um, he was directly one of the guys who influenced that whole crop of early 1900s American pulp writers. So Lovecraft, for sure, was aping a lot of Dunsany's works. Robert E. Howard had Dunsany themes going through his stuff, and a lot of their contemporaries did it well as well. So he might be something
I'm
for you,
looking
or maybe not.
through his stuff. It's actually possible that I have, and I just don't know specifically because I have like so one thing that I like to do is I go to thrift stores and library book sales and garage sales, and
Hmm.
my very favorite thing to buy as far as books go is anthologies. And so I have this huge
Oh,
collection of all these really old anthologies of sci-fi and fantasy specifically. And there are some where it's just a bunch of these like crazy old fantasy um, short stories. And it's possible that I've read one of them. Some of these sound familiar. I don't know. If I have, I think it would probably have been in one of those anthologies. But I'll look at these.
it's possible. He's sort of disappeared in a lot of ways. Just because there were, for a lot of years, there wasn't a whole lot of interest in those old pulps and Even anthologies from that period just sort of went by the wayside, but he's interesting. Oh, and here we go. And there's a link from the Dungeon Delver to one of his stories.
Is he the one who wrote? No. Is he the one who wrote the book that the Cats show is based on?
The Cats shows?
Yeah, like the Cats, like the
musical?
The Broadway show Cats.
Oh, was that based on a story? Oh, I don't know.
It was based on a story.
For me, that is also a horror movie that is too horrible.
This is saying the ghost of the Heaviside Layer, and they say that in Cats. Is he the guy who wrote that? Or am I just crazy?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe he was an inspiration.
He can't be. That sounds weird. No way.
He definitely didn't write the musical, but he could have been part of the inspiration for it.
King of Elfland's Daughter. I feel like I had... That sounds really familiar. Sounds really familiar. It's going to drive me crazy now.
Let's see.
What is that about? I'm trying to find it now. I'm sorry.
No worries. So the Dungeon Delver's got a link in there for Project Gutenberg. So
I have read this. Yeah, seeing that she is unhappy, the King of Elfland uses powerful magic. Yep, I have read that.
Oh, okay.
I feel dumb now.
It's okay.
It is definitely
sort of run together after a while.
It definitely reads as like the grandfather of current fantasy for sure.
Yeah,
I remember it now. It was in this book where like there was a story about these trolls that like kidnapped a little girl, and then another story about this princess who was cursed to have no gravity, and that's the silliest thing that I've ever read. But it was really good, weirdly. So it was in a book of all that.
Yeah, that's so everyone funny. Go check that out. There's got to be more on that Project Gutenberg, more Lord Dunsany. So yeah. But I know you've got some things to do, so thank you for stopping by, and hopefully we'll have you again before too long.
Yeah, so this was fun. You have
for
a nice
anyone
chat.
Who's thank you. For anyone who is still watching, I may be on the Dungeon Delvers channel on Friday night for Classic Gamma World, or maybe next Friday, whatever he decides. And Empire of the Undying Sun, my campaign guide for Dungeons and Dragons 5e. It's got horror, it's got pirate adventures, it's got ancient ruins, and a black pyramid. More information coming later this month.
A black pyramid.
The Black Pyramid, where the players will have to make a decision so profound the world will be changed forever. And on that note,
is it just really dirty?
Well, I mean, it's been there for a long time, so a lot of it's probably dirt. But yeah, so if you could please like the stream and subscribe to the channel. I'm like 3 away from 500.
You're so close.
So if you love me, you would do it. And all the cool people are doing it. So if you want to be cool, subscribe now.
Peer pressure.
Good night, everyone.
It works every time.
I hope so.